Hey, welcome to the table. It's great to have you with us. This week, we are going to get inspired to eat, live, think, and just be healthier. So stick around while we have a chat. My name's Fiona, and without further ado, let me introduce you to my crew, the lovely Melody, Rachel, and Shona.
Hi.
How are you, ladies?
Doing really well today.
I love what you're wearing, Mel. I love this eclectic look, looking great. Now, if there's one topic that's guaranteed to get parents talking and sometimes not talking ever again, it's the choices families make about childcare. Ladies, how comfortable are you with your baby or newborn being in childcare for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 7 to 7, 8 to 8? What do you think?
Well, it's funny because we were just having this conversation a little bit earlier about childcare when we would put our kids in childcare. And I think it's a really hard decision. We were saying when we decided to become moms, we never thought about daycare. Like, we never thought that that was something we need to think about. You know?
See, I actually thought that was what I was going to do. Being in a career, I was going to put them in childcare, it would be fine. But once I had the child, it's a whole different ballgame. I had twins, so we were dealing with a whole different ballgame altogether with that. Shona,
No.
shaking your head over there.
No, my kids didn't even go to kindy, sort of, or in New Zealand it's kindy, but, you know, the preschool at about 4.5 was the first time they actually went out of my care. And reflecting back, maybe I should have put them into daycare earlier. No.
Why not? Do you have something against it?
Look, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, and I was happy to stay at home. I've always worked from home, but I was just happy to stay at home. Plus, I think, too, because my son was quite ill when he was born, it was always in the back of my mind that nobody could look after my children like me. But I am a little bit anti it. I think if more mums stayed home, please don't Facebook me about this one, that we might not have as many issues with children as we do.
I guess it's not an option for many people. It's really expensive to be able to put your kids. Some people have to work just to be able to put their kids.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened to me because I was raised by my grandmother. I actually lived in my grandmother's house.
Oh, wow.
And my parents came and visited after work in the evenings, and weekends I'll go visit them.
Speaking of which, thank God for my parents. They've actually been our #1 support system. So thanks, Mum and Dad, in terms of looking after the kids and being the extra pair of hands. But how much should we be relying on parents to step in and, you know, take care of our children?
I would rather my parents than
a stranger. Yeah. I think too, because the good thing about grandparents is it's the same set of values, or hopefully it's the same set of values and morals as you have. Whereas if you send them off to daycare or, you know, it's not the same.
It's a good point because those first 7 years, they're forming their values and their morals. So I definitely wanted to stay home to make sure that I was part of the process.
Well, that's where they do the most learning, is 0 to 7. Yeah, the brain's forming.
I think growing up in the States, I never had this idea that I would stay home with my kids. I didn't think it was an option. But being here, I feel like, you know, it's a bit more family-oriented. And I want to try as much as possible to be present with Jax because, you know, you have a kid, you invest all of that energy and time to have a child. I want to be there as much as possible to help raise him.
But how do you balance that with having to pay the bills as well, you know? You got to stay home with your kid, raise him.
Mothers get judged all the time.
I know, I did.
Making these choices.
And, you know, we've always done a single income most of our lives, and it's just been by the grace of God that He's provided for us and given us everything that we've needed on a single income. I've never worked full-time since Joshua was born. I've worked part-time on and off, but yeah, just by the grace of God, we've done it,
Wow.
So you can, but you have to give up a lot of stuff.
I have to agree to that because I know that when both of us were working, money was not a thing. After kids, you definitely need to start thinking financially and start budgeting. So childcare, I think, well, I've got 3 under 3, so it's expensive.
Isn't it something like $200 a day?
Yeah, some parts of inner Sydney, $190 a day to the taxpayer. The childcare subsidy that parents are paying, $10 billion our economy is paying towards this. But yeah, childcare workers are making they're like the lowest paid, one of the lowest paid. So you've got to think, where's the money going? Who's really benefiting?
It's interesting. One of my friends was saying she thinks that because her kids are in childcare, and she was saying that even if she just needed to work to pay the childcare, she would do it just for the socialization. So I think that's one missing aspect from the conversation.
But isn't school that? I mean, how can you socialise a 0 to 2-year-old?
Yeah.
And isn't that what mothers groups and things are for?
Yeah, I guess for everybody it's different, but for her, she was really specific about wanting that socialization for her kids.
I tell you what, ladies, sorry to cut you off, but I think this conversation is far from over, which is one reason why we have our social media channels available for all of us to continue this conversation. So don't be shy and get online, tell us your thoughts, but please keep it respectful. Okay, ladies, it's time to check out What's Cooking with Gia.
I've taught my husband many recipes over the years, but this is a recipe he's taught me. It's a simple pesto sauce and it's gluten-free and dairy-free, and it's easy to make. All I have is a bunch of basil and a bunch of parsley, and I put them all in a food processor because that's all you're going to need. I've got a cup of cashews, and I have just some salt, any Celtic or Himalayan salt, sea salt, any good salt just to taste. Once we start to blend, you're going to have to add some olive oil, which I have here. All right, let's start. It's going to be a little noisy. So you might have to stop and just brush the sides a bit. Use a spatula. As you can see, I only used a little bit of oil. You can put more depending on how you like it. So I've also got an aioli sauce here. And I'm going to put a little bit of this aioli sauce that I've made myself. You'll get the recipe on our website. Come on, Olive, come around. You want to try this pesto? I put 2 tablespoons, then you mix it through. I use this for pasta, so if the kids are hungry and you want a quick meal, just boil some pasta, some wholemeal pasta, 1 tablespoon of the aioli, which you'll find on our website, the recipe. We've also just used 2 tablespoons of the pesto we just made, and look at that. Kids love it. Delicious.
Yum. Pesto. Gotta love that pesto. Speaking of healthy food, we have our dietitian, Trish Guy from Sanitarium here with the message that your food can not only keep you healthy, it can actually cure you when you're sick. Do I have that right, Trish?
You certainly do, Fiona. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Hi, Trish.
Yeah. So I think we've known, or a lot of people know that eating healthy and having a healthy lifestyle can reduce our risk of getting things like heart disease and cancer. But what we also are starting to see is that a healthy lifestyle can actually treat some of these conditions as well. So actually act like medicine.
What are some examples?
Well, there's a couple of examples. So the DASH diet, which is not only just a low salt diet, but one that features
Hold on. Dash diet? This is a new one on me.
It's a diet to reduce hypertension or blood pressure. So it's been shown that following this healthy plant-based diet in just 3 weeks can lower your blood pressure. Similarly, the portfolio diet, which is a portfolio or a combination of different plant foods, including things like soy and nuts and other foods, can lower cholesterol levels by about 30%, which is the same as what the most common types of cholesterol-lowering medications can do. So there's many people you probably heard of are on statins. So the portfolio diet is as effective as statins. And then, of course, there's the CHIP program, the Complete Health Improvement Program, which some people may have heard about, which is run through some churches and also now online, focuses on a plant-based diet as part of an overall healthy lifestyle.
Is it on the Sanitarium website, the CHIP program?
Absolutely, or the CHIP website itself, yes.
Oh, so it has its own
Has its
website.
own
So
website.
CHIP.
Yep,
Okay.
CHIP Australia. And, you know, we're starting to see some amazing results in people following that diet. So people not only just losing weight, but lowering their cholesterol, lowering their blood sugar levels, lowering their blood pressure to the point where they're coming off medications. So, I mean, of course, people shouldn't take themselves off their medications. They should do that in conjunction with their doctor. But I guess, you know, it's really important. What I would encourage people to do is to think, you know, encourage to talk to your doctor about, you know, what can I do in my lifestyle before actually thinking you need to go straight to the medication.
So
I was just going to ask, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll take the statins and I'll still get to eat everything I want.
Yeah.
Is it the same with the diets? Can you, you know, add some of these things to your diet and still keep eating everything that you want? Will you still see the improvement?
Yeah. I think, you know, to be the most effective, you do need to cut back on some of the, you know, the less healthy foods.
the naughty foods.
Yeah.
Well, the stuff that caused it in the first place.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely. So,
What are
you
the
know, your
processed
cakes
foods?
and your biscuits, your highly processed foods, takeaway foods, fast foods, alcohol and soft drinks, you know, all those things we know we shouldn't really be having.
It's easier said than done because we live in a
Absolutely.
fast life. You know, we can barely, you
Yeah.
know, drive-through is so accessible.
I know.
So how, as a parent or families, can we make sure that we have the time to, you know, not all of us have time to sit there and cook for an hour.
No. Well, you know, I think getting some support and getting some help. So, you know, seeing a dietitian or finding some really good resources and cookbooks is a great way to get started. So, you know, I think, starting with a really well-stocked pantry and doing some planning, getting those shopping lists out again.
I see you have some foods.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are, some wonderful foods that we should be eating every day that have powerful effects in our body. So, whole grains we know help manage our blood sugar levels.
Right.
Nuts. This is just 30 grams of nuts a day, or peanut butter can lower cholesterol levels and reduce our risk of heart disease. Absolutely, yeah. And of course, a colourful variety of fruits and vegetables every day.
What's good about capsicum?
Oh,
because I know it's a great sweetener.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's, full of antioxidants and vitamin C, and, I could talk a lot about capsicum. But, the point is, whatever your family likes, whatever's fresh and whatever's in season, as long as we're eating plenty of those every day.
So we're talking about older people here and using these foods to heal them. Should we be doing it with our children?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people just think about diabetes or heart disease when the doctor says, you've got this problem. But, these diseases start developing. They take years to develop and, in fact, start to develop in childhood. And, kids who have high-fat diets, unhealthy diets, low levels of exercise can actually they're starting to find build-ups of plaque in their arteries. Even some diseases can be influenced.
There is an increase in obesity with childhood.
Yeah. But plaque, I mean, that you associate plaque with old people. Yeah, it's not... The
disease process takes years to develop, and even what women eat when they're pregnant can actually affect the...
I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there, what I ate when I was pregnant. OK, but totally in keeping with the healing power of our food, let's have a chat about this Whopper cookbook by Sue Rad, Food as Medicine. Would you recommend it, Shona? I know you're a foodie.
Yeah, I had a look through this book and I'm quite impressed with it. It's a very diverse book. It has lots of different cultural food in it, and it has some really interesting ingredients, some of which you may not have heard of, or you may have thought, oh, I wonder what I do with that. This book would help you.
Such as, like what?
What's the ancient grain we talked about a few weeks ago?
Quinoa.
No, the farro and silken tofu and some of those ingredients, which if you're not brought up with them, you wouldn't know even, what to do with them. And this cookbook covered that.
Yeah, it's actually an award-winning cookbook, and I think it's up for an international best health and nutrition book in the gourmand world of cookbooks. So it's like an Oscar of cookbooks.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's apparently there's research and scientific research that supports the recipes in there. Is that right, Trish?
Absolutely. So Sue talks a lot about the research of how healthy eating and lifestyle can positively impact our bodies. So it's full of really interesting evidence-based information, but
plant-based foods,
plant-based
diets.
But practical. She also includes lots of tips about how to make cooking easier, from a shopping list to looking at recipes that you can make in batches and then freeze or use in different ways throughout the week. So, when we talk about not having time, Sue really helps address some of that.
Yeah.
And even freezing, is food still fresh? I still have an issue with freezing your food and not having fresh food because I think, I don't know, maybe the freezer takes some freshness out of it. Who knows? Okay, don't attack me. Oh no! Does it keep? Does
Absolutely.
it keep well?
And frozen vegetables are just as nutritious as fresh vegetables. So if they help you eat more veggies, stock your freezer with frozen veggies.
I'm actually a bit curious though. Can too much of a good thing be a bad thing? Because you think green veggies are good, right? But I read somewhere that if you have too much spinach, you get kidney stones.
Look, I think the issue is that we aren't eating enough of those foods. So I think we should worry about that first before worrying about having too much of those foods. And the great thing with that, getting our nutrients from foods rather than supplements, is that the body tends to take care of, if there's too high levels of one thing or not. So it's very hard to have too much of a good thing if you're eating the food. If you're having a supplement, that's probably a different story.
Yeah, I actually liked it too, because it talked about some of the foods we can use as medicine. And excuse me, today I'm on the garlic and ginger because I've got a bit of sinus happening. So yeah, I liked that side of it as well, that she showed you could use food as medicine. Because too often we reach to the medicine cabinet and go, what pill can we pop? Rather than going, I could use this or this and this.
It's so easy for doctors to prescribe you.
Yeah, another one of my favourite one is olive leaf extract.
Yes.
My kids have been on that for years and years and years, and we barely get colds because we use olive leaf. Yeah.
Ever since they were young?
Like little.
Oh, okay.
Daily?
Yep, every day. Because you can get it in liquid form now. You used to only get it as capsules. So there's lots of stuff.
What do you think about olive leaf extract as the nutritionist?
You're going to rubbish me with this one.
No. Look, you know, some herbs and spices, you know, they have a myriad of potent antioxidant
Turmeric as well?
Turmeric's really good.
Turmeric's really popular, and Sue has a wonderful recipe for a turmeric latte. You know, it's been a staple
tasty.
spice of certain cuisines, and you know, it has really strong anti-inflammatory effects in the body. Which, you know, the process of inflammation is really the underlying causes of a lot of these lifestyle diseases that we're getting. So if we can tame that inflammation through healthy plant foods, we're setting ourselves up for good health later in life.
And it's really easy to use. If you can get the fresh turmeric, you just grate it into everything and it's a beautiful colour.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's... I made curry yesterday and it stained my fingers. I'm not even trying to show you.
I've stained my bench tops too.
Yeah.
Looks well worth checking out. And just a word to the wise, if you'd like to score a free copy of the Food as Medicine book, we have a limited number to give away to our viewers in Australia and New Zealand. Visit our Facebook page or Instagram for details. Now, it's time to get our handy hat on as we check out what DIY Dora is up to.
Always have the perfect bag to match any outfit with this easy no-sew clutch. All you need is a ruler, a pattern, some vinyl, fabric, magnetic closure with prongs, pens, Stanley knife, scissors and craft glue. Take your pattern and place it onto the vinyl. Trace it and cut it out. Now we're going to do the same thing with our material, but just 1 inch larger. With the wrong side of the fabric facing you, place the vinyl on top, right side facing you. The vinyl will be your lining and the fabric will be the outside of your clutch. Rolling in the edges as you go, fold the fabric over the vinyl and glue down to secure. Make sure there's no raw edges exposed. Fold in the sides and bottom of the clutch. With a pen, mark where the magnetic closure should go. Using scissors or a Stanley knife, cut slits wide enough for prongs in each of the 3 layers. Insert the snap through the bottom flap first, then both side flaps. Fold prongs flat to secure. Lastly, glue the magnetic clasp to the top flap. There you go, a perfect DIY clutch.
That's a great little purse. Thanks, Dora. Okay, from making a purse to buying a purse, there is an ethical fashion movement growing in influence, and consumers are urged to think twice when it comes to purchasing habits, which is why we've got here in the studio Gershon Nimborka from Baptist World Aid. Thanks, Gershon, for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, I know that there's this issue with child labour and sweatshops in parts of the world. What does Baptist World Aid, or how significant is this issue in these parts of the world?
Yeah, it's enormous. The International Labour Organisation estimates that there's 21 million people in slavery or forced labour around the world. There are 168 million child labourers around the world. And the vast majority of those workers are in the Asia-Pacific region, so our backyard. And that's also the garment factory of the world. Like, that's where all our clothes, or the vast majority of our clothes, are made in countries like China, Cambodia, Bangladesh and Vietnam.
Right.
So whenever we buy stuff, we're at risk of using exploited labour, people that are working as slaves or young children.
So how do we know? I mean, it's so easy just to go to Myers or Kmart, whatever store you go to, and just grab a shirt. There's no label to say, you know, this was made in a sweatshop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not good marketing.
So companies probably don't want that on their clothes, do they?
You know what I mean.
There was a really big movement after that earthquake that happened in India not a few years. It's the first anniversary just gone, hasn't it?
In Bangladesh? About the Bangladesh factory
Yes,
collapse.
yeah.
So it's 4 years ago now. The Rana Plaza factory collapsed in Bangladesh. And it was just shocking. 1,134 people lost their lives, mostly poor garment workers. And they saw the structural defects of the building that they were in. They left and then were forced back in by management to keep working on clothes that wind up in our stores. So it was horrendous, and it shocked the conscience of the world. Decision makers and consumers around the world started saying, who are making my clothes and how are they being treated? And we launched our first research report in the wake of that factory collapse.
Is that the ethical fashion guide?
It is indeed. So we've launched that every year for the last 4 years. We graded in this latest report 106 companies from A to F to find out what they're doing to make sure that there's no child labour, slave labour or exploited labour in the production of their clothes. So the answer to your first question about, hey, how do we find out which companies are doing better to have the right systems in place to ensure that workers are protected? That's what we put our report out for.
Right.
How did the companies react to being listed in this? I guess for some probably who have a good grade, they might, enjoy it, but the others who don't have such a good
They must be like, oh no, the Baptist World Aid are in town.
We all know what it's like when we get an F at school.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that. So there's a lot of those companies that are doing well. They champion the research. They're out on the front foot, talking about what they're doing to make sure that work is protected. And of course, you'd expect at the other end of the scale, companies that are getting the F grades, they're less happy with the research. We think it's a really robust process that we go through. We've taken input from other companies, from labour rights experts, from auditors, from NGOs, from the US State Department to work out how do we grade companies on what they're doing. So we think it's a really strong process.
But just thinking practically speaking, right, there is a perception that if it's fair trade or ethical, it costs more. There's a dichotomy, doing the right thing and looking after your hip pocket. What is your advice?
One of the really fascinating things about our research that a lot of people are really surprised by, we don't find a very strong correlation between the price you pay at the store and the quality of the ethics when it comes to labour rights in that product. So companies like Cotton On in Australia or H&M as a big multinational are actually doing quite well, and they're usually perceived as value items.
Sigh of relief.
That's what's You've actually got like the labels listed in this book and have graded them, so it's very user friendly.
So where can people get a copy of this?
So if you go to behindthebarcode.org.au, you can order the hard copy guide, you can look at the full report, which is 80 pages for the policy wonks like me.
Yeah, I read it. I was actually really impressed with it because it talked from the ground to the garment. So it just didn't cover the people in the sweat factories, if that's the word you want to use, but it talked about the cotton growers and producers and harvesters and things. So you ethically go the whole line.
Yeah, that's what we're calling companies to do, because what we find is that the garment factories, conditions have been improving. Most companies know where the garment factories are, they're monitoring it, they're checking what's going on there. But you take a step back to where the fabrics are coming from, or a step back further to where the cotton is coming from, and they just don't know who their suppliers are. And if you don't know, how do you make sure workers are protected? How do you make sure that you're not using slave labour or child labour at those levels of the supply chain? So only 7% of companies know where their cotton is coming from, and only 39% know where their fabrics are coming from.
I know on your website, I actually read something which was quite interesting. It's like a dark joke they have in the region of South India that where most of the cotton is apparently manufactured, and they say that you can tell what will be the fashionable colour in Paris in 6 months by the colour of the river.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the environmental concerns are just huge. So you've got all these dyes that are just flooding straight out of these fabric mills straight into the water and painting the rivers all sorts of colours that end up,
So do you find that companies actually care about these things, or do they care more about the profit?
It's all about the bottom dollar, right?
It's a really good question. It'll depend on who's leading that company and what's pushing them forward. So you meet some CEOs that are genuinely concerned when they hear these stories of slavery in their supply chains, and they put the emphasis on to start taking action. But you also meet people that you get the sense that they're doing it because there's so much public pressure on them, there's investor pressure, there's media pressure. At the end of the day, as long as they're doing it, as long as they're protecting workers, I think we're happy. If we can end a world where we're buying clothes that are made with slavery, that's a good outcome.
It's a very good point, and I'm glad you've brought it to the awareness, so that people know about that. But I know that we have to change topics, switch gears here a little bit. Gershon, I know you don't have children, and I know Rachel and Mel, you've just recently had babies. Well, not recently, but you've got young babies. But let me tell you, believe me when I say, kids' birthday parties are serious business nowadays, and there's some serious coin to be spent by parents. Planning a kids' party these days can mean anything from jumping castles, candy buffets, a hired clown, face painting to live animals and pony rides, seriously. Have any of you attended the these hectic kids' parties?
Oh, I hang my head in shame. I think I'd probably fall into that category.
Have you organised one?
Is it every birthday or is it just special
Oh,
birthdays?
look, it used to be every birthday, and having 2 boys, one in January, one in June. So, you know, the church family would rub their hands together and go, oh, there's a party at Solomon's, good food, and, you know, used to be the jumping castles. I think a bit of guilt from me because I love entertaining and I love an excuse to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I know as a parent, some parents aren't, they didn't have these luxuries when they were young. So as a parent, you want to give this luxury to your child. So I don't see the problem with it. Gershon, have you attended some of the parties? These
Yeah, I've got
kids' parties?
a range of cousins. I've got lots of friends. They're in the middle of the baby boom right now. They're just so extravagant at times, right? And part of me loves that. It loves the celebration of these children and
I
having fun.
agree.
It's great.
Yeah.
The flip side for me, right, is that we are so lucky and we don't realise how much extravagance we have. 5.9 million children don't get to live to see their 5th birthday.
So I know you were talking about ethical fashion. Are you talking ethical parties now?
Yeah, go for it.
Another guy
ethical lives, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we like orientate our lives in ways that help everyone to flourish? Like, I don't know if the extra $1,000 that we drop on our kids' birthdays make them any happier.
Yeah, or teaching them values. That's
Transformational. Totally.
And
Especially as they're
and-
getting older, I think, like
Yeah.
helping them to find that balance and not having this expectation that everything's going to be over the top all the time.
You have to top it up. But not
Yeah.
only that, even attending these parties as parents, you feel a bit of pressure.
Well, the pressure to buy the present, and then your present's got to match up to everybody else's present.
That's another thing. It's attending all these parties as well can become a bit costly for
Yeah.
parents as well.
But that's the thing, I find that, the more affluent we get, the more we tend to try to want to spoil ourselves more instead of thinking about how we can help other people.
Because the average person is living on in the third world countries is living on how much, less than $2 a
Yeah,
day?
you got 43% of the world living on less than $2 per day.
Doesn't that put it back into...
Absolutely. And like the more affluent we get as a society, we're not getting any happier. So, if we spent that money more wisely, think of the difference we could make. Someone on $2 a day, they'll notice a difference from $1,000 that you invest back in their communities.
And what would make a kid happy? They'd probably be just as happy to have their family and friends around.
Well, it's actually the box that the present came in.
Well, at your age it isn't. Sorry, at my children's age, it's the label that's on the pair of shoes or shirt.
Well, I'm sure we could get into another party of itself over here. Well, it's that time again. We've had a great chat on eating, living, thinking and buying healthy, and even how to have a healthy party, kind of. Don't forget, you can continue to chat with us on social media. The details are on your screen because there's always room for you at the table. Thanks so much, Gershon and Bulka, and of course, these lovely ladies. I love your work. Have a fantastic week. See you next time. God bless.